So tonight I wanted to talk about rhythms and sight reading and reading rhythms and all of my little tricks that I've come up with to make those processes easier. Okay, so, oh, there's my friend Marty down there. How you doing, Marty? Cool. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So I'm going to show you and share the document here that I've made. Let's see. Oh, it's still not coming up. Hold on just a second. There we go. All right, can everybody see the document? Okay, all right, cool. All right, yep. So first, so we're gonna talk about tricks to sight reading in 6/8, and reading swing rhythms, and how to sight read better. Please make sure your microphone's on mute as we get going here. All right, so brief explanation about 6/8. You probably all are very familiar with the time signature, but I kind of want to just make sure we're all on the same page with this. So technically, the 8th note in 6/8 time gets 1 beat. However, in reality, we usually think of 6/8 and 2, with the dotted quarter getting 1 beat. This concept is crucial to our understanding of these tricks that I'm about to lay out for you, okay? So what I mean by this is that in 6/8 time, you typically have 2 dotted quarters, and those would be your strong beats. And each one of those is broken up into 3 parts. So da, 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 da. Does that make sense? Pretty basic idea. So instead of thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where they're all equal, we're just thinking of these 2 strong beats as being our kind of our guideposts as we're reading in 6/8. Okay? With each beat being broken up into 3 parts as needed. All right. Now, when we're reading rhythms in 6/8, I don't want you to worry about how it's counted. There's a lot of teachers that have come up with different counting systems, and I think sometimes it can get confusing to people. So don't worry about counting it, okay? Instead, let's try to take a step back and look at the big picture. When you do, you'll notice that the notes are usually flagged together in a way that shows where the big beats are in each measure. So the first part of this trick is to always visually identify the big beats. So for example, in this little 4 measures here, you can see that this group, don't even try to read it right now, just look big picture with me, okay? Big picture. This group here is flagged together. This group is flagged together. So the first one is your big beat. Da, 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 right? Here, it doesn't matter how many beats it is. It's 1 big beat, and that's 1 big beat, okay? So da, 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 da. Make sense? That's easy enough? Now, here, that's the first beat, so that's the big beat. This is the other half of that measure. So da, 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 rest. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to figure some of that out that you might be like, well, how do I figure that out? Let me kind of show you what that means. We take the first part of the trick, which is to visually identify the big beats. Second part of the trick is to realize that in 6/8, everything happens in one of 3 places. Either on the beat, before the beat, or after the beat. That's it. Okay, so with that in mind, if we look at something like this, this note comes right after the beat. This is on the beat, that's right after the beat. This is on the beat, that's right after the beat. So da, 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 da. All right, we're gonna look at some more, don't worry. The last part of the trick is you have to keep a steady beat, otherwise none of these tricks work. Okay, you have to allow every note to fall into one of those 3 places. You keep the steady beat, you aim for the big beats, okay? Again, don't worry about how to count it. let's look at what this looks like in real life. Here's an excerpt in 6/8. Right here in this measure, this is on the beat. What's this one? Is it on the beat, before the beat, or after a beat?
Before the beat.
Yeah, it comes right before the beat. So you don't have to worry about counting it. It's just da, da, da. You just wait until right before this beat. Da, da, da. Make sense? Does this one come right after a beat, on the beat, or right before a beat?
Right after.
Yeah, right after the beat. So da, da, right? Da, da. So this is da, 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 da. Make sense? If you can just keep your steady beat going and line everything up right around those beats, da, 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 it'll all make sense. Okay? You following me so far? Give me a thumbs up if you're following me so far. Okay, give me a thumbs down if you really hate what I'm saying. I see Ken's furrowing his brow. All right, hold on. Just give me a second here. All right. So right here, let's look at this measure, because there looks like a lot more going on there than just right on a beat, right after the beat, or right before the beat, okay? So right here, this obviously...
That's a little intimidating right there.
Yeah, it is, exactly. So this obviously comes right after the beat, okay? Now remember, each one of these beats is gonna be broken up into 3, right? Just like this is 3, this is 3. This is obviously 2 parts of the 3, okay? Here, we have the big beat here, so I'm not going to worry about this. I just want to isolate this. This is an 8th note, and this is an 8th note. So that's, again, broken up into 3. These 2 notes right here are both part of 1 8th note. So I think the reason the 6/8 rhythms often look intimidating is because there's so much black ink. You know, in real life, if this were like just a chord, you know, if this were like in 4/4 time, this would be 2 8th notes, but it's not. Now it's in 6/8, it's 2 16ths. So both of these together make up one of the parts of this big beat, okay? So let's pretend, sorry, that's my dog. All right, Delilah, go to bed. Go to bed. Yeah, she already knows.
Can he count 6/8 time too?
Yeah, she's trying to. She's rushing though. And this right here is just an 8th note, okay? It would just be 1 2 3, right? Da 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 da. But now the first one is broken up into 2 parts. Da 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 da. So instead of da 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 da, it's da 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 da. Make sense? So we put this together with this. Da 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 da. Just aiming for those big beats, those down beats. Following me? Okay, okay, good. Here, there's a lot of black ink. But this one's easy because we know this starts on 1 and we know that that's our next big beat because here's our 3 parts. 1 2 3. So all we have to do is just evenly distribute all these notes between here and here. Da 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 da. Now, playing it on your instrument might be a little more tricky because you got to finger all those notes. But theoretically, da 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 da. Make sense? So from here, kind of clap it along with me. Ready, go. Da 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 dee off. That makes sense? Just aiming for the big beats as our kind of our goalposts, if you will. Okay. Lenny, did you have a question?
No, I was just enjoying clapping along.
Okay, good, 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 good. So, Ken, talk to me. You're less furrowed now, but talk to me.
Well,
What bothers you about this?
every bar makes sense when we go individually.
Yeah.
It's just remembering how to read each of them once we start to tack them together.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So, obviously, breaking things down one measure at a time is a great thing to do when you're learning a new piece, right? But you're right, when we're sight reading, we don't always have time to do that, which is when I want you to really look at the big picture. So many times we want to look note, 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 right? And then we miss the big picture. This big picture is the key to sight reading. But you have to let yourself do it. You have to let yourself not get bogged down with note, note, note. You have to just try. You do this a couple times and you'll amaze yourself at how easy it becomes. Look at the big picture. Go ahead.
So in the bar beginning of the second line,
Mm-hmm.
if that measure was repeated,
Mm-hmm.
that one and then one just like it afterward,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you would count that how?
So you mean if it was this measure and then this measure again and then this measure?
Yeah.
Da 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 dee da dee da 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 dee da dee.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, again, I don't use any numbers. I'm just, using random articulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I would do that. Again, literally, it's this feel like, if you think back to your childhood, you probably heard like things like ring around the rosy, ba-da-dee-da, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is all 6/8 feel stuff, all of these nursery rhymes that you probably knew. And so that feel of having beats divided into 3 parts is actually very natural to us. It's when we start in band class with looking at it instead of hearing it and feeling it first. Looking at it is the confusing part. That's why we get confused in the first place.
I have another question if I could.
Yes.
The very first bar.
Uh-huh.
So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Technically, but they're not all even because the emphasis is always on, if you will, 1 and 4.
Yeah, there's an accent because it's 6/8. There's an accent on the first and fourth.
Right. There's a
right. But so here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Your question, very elementary question.
Uh-huh.
Is that the reason that bar is not notated in 6 individual eighth notes?
Yeah, exactly.
So if it was 6 individual eighth notes, they would all have equal weight as far as accent.
Yeah, theoretically. It helps us to feel the downbeat. It also helps us visually to see. They flag it so that it's easier for us to sight read and to see where we should feel those big beats.
So that's the convention where you've got groups of 3 eighth notes together. The eighth notes are usually grouped together.
And it's usually, if they wanted it, like if they did 2, 2, and 2, that would usually indicate that you would feel 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Right, a double feel.
Yeah, usually. But it's usually going to be written with this kind of subdivision because we do usually feel 6, 8, and 2. And if you think to like your social security number, Ken, no, don't tell me yours. I'm just kidding. But if you think of your social security number, you usually go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? You have the dashes in between the numbers.
Right.
And this is kind of the same thing. We go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. We have these flags together because it helps our brain process.
But so okay, and I get that. But
Mm-hmm.
so clearly, if we have 2 what look like triplets to me,
Mm-hmm.
then that's rhythmically that's going to be different than 3 pairs or 6 individual eighth notes.
Yeah, okay, so that's a good question. So assuming that all of those examples you're talking about are in 6/8, they would all rhythmically happen at the same time.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So 1, 2, so first one, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Yep.
The second way is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah.
Okay, same way. And then the last one would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all even, right?
Yeah.
Still, 6/8 notes fall in the same place. It's just a matter of how we feel that downbeat.
Right, but obviously, they, depending on those three situations, they would be notated differently, just depending on what the composer wanted.
Yes, most likely they would.
All right, so then obviously, again, this is very elementary stuff.
You're fine.
Then that notation is going to determine how we accent them. Now, so if you go to the last bar in the first line.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yep.
So this one is da 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 da.
Exactly. Yep.
And it follows the convention because the four are tied together. First eighth is going to have an accent.
Exactly.
And the last, to get all four of those notes in, you have to, just bear with me here. You have to get those four notes in before the second major beat of the bar.
Exactly. And these two, since they have the extra flag, we know that they're the two fastest ones.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Now look, keep this in mind, Ken. Let's go back to this first measure real quick. If they went two flagged together, these two flagged together, and these two flagged together, they might as well write it in 3/4. Because what they really want is 1 and 2 and 3 and, right?
Right.
But they wrote it in 6/8 because most likely they want this subdivision, da 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 da, instead of 1 da dee da dee da.
So another point about this is, and that's actually a good point. Why would something be written in 6/8 rather than in 3/4? So if you see a 6/8 notation, there's a question. If you see a 6/8 notation, then you're starting to look for the two major accents in each bar.
Yes, exactly. That's why. It's because you would have two big beats divided into triplets. Now, couldn't we just write that as 2/4 and divide each beat into triplets? Yes. However, when you get to something like this, that notation starts to look really confusing. Okay. If you're in 2/4 and you want da 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 da.
Yeah.
Because then you have to write a triplet with the first two triplets. So this would be this, but with a 3 over it, and it would be very confusing. So you're right. They would write it in 6/8 because they want that, what we would call a compound feel. We want this 1 2 3 1 2 3 feel of 3 beats, 3 notes per big beat.
Okay. Okay.
Or maybe not 3 notes, 3 subdivisions rather.
Okay.
Yeah, those are great questions. Does anybody else have any other questions right along with this?
I'm just going to confuse Ken even more.
Oh, thank you.
This applies only to instrumental music. If it were vocal music and there were different syllables on each of those notes, they'd be separate.
That's a very good point, yeah. They may not write them as flagged at all because of the syllables in the words.
Well, because of the way they needed to be sung, Janice.
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome.
That's the convention for vocal music.
Right.
However, to just make it even more confusing, if like the first 2 notes were the same syllable, they would be flagged together.
Oh,
So
right. Sure. Right, that makes sense. Because in that case, the vocalization is acting a little bit more like an instrument.
Right. Okay, cool. So that's a great point. So let's go through this exercise one time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clap on each big beat. And I'm going to say the da, 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 da rhythms, okay? I want you all to mute yourselves and try this with me if you want to. All right? Okay. Let's try this together. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and da 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 da. da 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 dee da dee da da dee da da dee da 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 da. All right, give me a thumbs up if you did pretty good. You only missed one or two things. Thumb sideways if you did okay. Thumbs down if you did terrible and you want to admit it.
See, my tendency on this bar here, second line, third bar.
Yes, right here.
Which we hadn't gone over.
Mm-hmm.
Is to rush that figure of 3 together.
Uh-huh.
And
yeah.
not count it, so it would be da 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 da.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So okay, you know how those YouTube videos are that have the little line at the bottom that goes like this to show you what time it is? I kind of like try to pretend like I have one of those lines going underneath each measure. That kind of helps me because I know I need to divide this beat evenly into 3 parts. So I've got to have this line going steady underneath it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I try to think of it. This comes right before that. Da, da, dee, da, da, dee. And as long as I keep that steady beat going, da, da, dee, da, da, dee, da, 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 dee.
Right. Okay.
Because if I rush this but I have the steady beat going, da, da, dee, da, da, da. Oh, that wasn't even.
No,
Yeah.
that's right. And it's
Right.
not written that way, but that's always one of the places where I screw up.
Yeah.
Is I misread those groups of notes.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. I just try to keep, again, that big picture and just look for those big beats. As far as the notes go, you'll surprise yourself if you're just aiming for the goal points as an instrumentalist. You'll surprise yourself how many right notes you'll get along the way. Your brain and fingers will kind of just go to the right notes if you're focusing on the rhythms. It's like when I have a student who's struggling with, like, I don't know, with some kind of fingering, I'll be like, hey, do more of a crescendo here. Or, think about the phrase shape or something. And then all of a sudden their fingers do what they're supposed to do because their brain stops worrying about that and starts thinking about something else. So, yeah. Again, just try to look for those big beats as you go. Okay. Any other questions about this?
Well, can I get another one in? So as a general technique, not only in 6/8, but for other time signatures as well, for amateurs like me, as a general principle, it would be with a new piece of music, very lightly in pencil, to sort of do the same kind of notations, excuse me, to notate the major beats in each bar given the time signature.
Yes.
and then go back and fill in the other rhythms that are written within those bars.
Yeah, I absolutely would recommend that, and I do that. I do that when I'm practicing. If I have a tricky measure or something where, look, who isn't going to mess this up? Because it goes da, da, dee, da, 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 da. It changes, right? It does, the 8th note moves in both of these measures. It does the opposite. So I would definitely, probably in my music, you would see these little hash marks, these vertical lines over the big beats. Because if it's not obvious enough, like here, yeah, I see it's a quarter note and an 8th note, but I may not visually see that the first time through the big picture of where that big beat is. So I would absolutely go through and mark a vertical line. I call them hash marks. I would mark a hash mark in my music there.
Okay, that's really helpful.
Yeah, cool, good.
No, it really is, because it just is, because I can tell already that many times when I see a new rhythm, I don't have to get screwed up with the pitch, but when I see a new rhythm, I tend to misread it because I misread the groupings and I really don't identify for myself what the major rhythm is in each bar. That's really helpful.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. If this helps just a little bit, I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, the marking the big beats in the measure, I've been doing that for many years, and that's, you know, anybody who takes a band instrument, that's one of the things you learn for 6/8, and especially if you play, well, I mean, all wind instruments, all the etudes, there's tons of 6/8 stuff, but French horn especially, there's lots of 6/8 stuff.
Yeah, I find that marking these lines really helps me, and yeah, good. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions about the 6/8 rhythm thing here? Okay, well then let's go into reading swing rhythms. Nobody laughs at my little picture there. Okay.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Actually, I thought that was a really good analogy.
Thank you.
When you do go ya da 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 da.
Yes. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's so many times when I just think of, this is so comfortable, and I know it looks ridiculous on paper, but it is such a comfortable feel because in our childhood we felt that. Anyway, it just looks scary to us because we're so used to reading in 4, even though I'd have to try really hard to think of a folk song or a children's song that's in.
Well, Shawn, and I don't know much about horses, but I know that because horn was originally used as a hunting instrument and all that, there's a ton of stuff. All the Mozart horn concertos have 6/8 rondo movements. And I understand it's supposed to be reminiscent of galloping horses, but I don't know why, but it is supposed to be that way.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that too. Like da da dee da dee da dee da. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm gonna let my dog out of this room because she really just can't control herself right now. So talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
So Ken, when you were talking about that, or Lenny, I was thinking, yadadum bum bum, badadum bum bum, badadum bum 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 bum.
Oh yeah.
Maxwell, come here.
So for the extra credit question, where are the big beats in 4/4 time signatures? 1 and 3?
When I mark all 4 of them.
Oh,
Sometimes I need to.
No, in 4/4, even in 4/4.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think both of those answers are correct. You know, it just depends what you're playing.
Yeah, I think it depends on the style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that being said, and that's a great segue, Barry. So that being said, when we're in swing, we tend to feel the more accented beat on 2 and 4. But if we're playing something like a Sousa march,
Right.
da 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 dee, da 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 da, we're definitely feeling that on 1 and 3. So anyway, but let's move on to swing, since you did a perfect segue for me. Thank you. So with reading swing rhythms, I just want to make sure everybody is clear on this fact, that it is not really possible to learn how to swing by me telling you words. Okay? The only way to really learn how to swing is by listening and imitating. Now, learning how to read swing rhythms is also best learned by listening and imitating. But some discussion, I believe, can give us at least a starting point. Okay? How about this piece? You guys ever heard of this? Yeah, look a little familiar? No, Ken's never heard of this. By Miriam Duchesne. So we're going to look at this 8 bars of this piece, and we're going to do what's called scat syllables. All right? Scat syllables are basically the way that we're going to verbalize the way that we want the rhythm and the syllables to sound when we play them on our instrument. Okay? The most important thing you need to know about reading jazz rhythms is do, dit, dit. That is it. And it looks like this. Now, if we were reading this in regular music, like 1 and, right? 1 and 2 and is what that would look like. That's what it would sound like. But in jazz, that's not it at all. So this is the confusing one. It's do, dit, dit. Both of these 2 notes look different, but they sound the same. This looks like a quarter note, this looks like an eighth note, but they're both a dit and dit. This is do. This is the long note, even though it looks like a short note. These two eighth notes look like they should be the same, and this should be long. And that's why it's confusing to read swing rhythms, because it flips everything you already know upside down on its head.
I don't see the advantage to writing it that way then.
Yeah,
It seems pretty deceptive.
it is, Myrna, it is very deceptive.
But
I don't think, go ahead, Lenny.
well, I mean, if I'm thinking about it here, I mean that's really like the articulation and the length of the note, but where it comes in the measure, isn't it? Where it actually falls in terms of the beat is very close to a straight rhythm. It's just I mean, I know that there's maybe a more of a triplet feel, but to me, it's like it's just the shortness of the long note, the shortness or longness of the notes as written on the page. They're still falling in the same place relatively.
They're really close. They're really close.
I mean, I know there's a little difference in feel.
There's a little difference in feel, but for us to sit here and dissect it and try to figure out, well, how many 16th note triplets behind the beat is this? I feel like it completely defeats everything we're trying to accomplish. Really, the only way to clearly articulate and define where this is literally just to listen and imitate, okay? But you're correct, Lenny. You are correct, okay?
So,
but all you need to know, go ahead. Was somebody saying something?
yeah, so in other words, you said it very well. You don't need other words, but I do. So those three notes are do, dit, dit. If it was going to be dit, dit, do, just follow me here for a second. The middle note would be first.
Say it again.
So what I'm seeing as a convention is what makes the last two notes dit, dit is because the middle note is before the last note. So if you wanted to take those three notes and turn them around, reorder them to make it dit, dit, do, how would you do that?
Well, we wouldn't have a dit, do.
Did it do?
So I guess I should have put that on here, is that if we just have 2 eighth notes, I'll update this and send out a new one. And right here, I'm going to put 2 eighth notes. So if you just have 2 eighth notes next to each other, it's do, dit.
Right.
Okay, it's do, dit.
Yeah.
So that's why this is do, dit, dit. Okay, so 2 eighth notes right next to each other is just do, dit. So to your question, if we had dit, dit, we wouldn't have dit, dit. We'd have do, dit.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me shut up and keep going and see if I can.
And if you already did it, then you done it.
Ah.
But now we're just gonna do it. Okay, that was a bad joke. All
Bada
right. But where's my badun-ching, Ken?
Yeah. Where are my drums when I need them? Yeah. Never.
So we're gonna put this in context. If this is followed by a rest, it's do, dit, dit. Okay. But if it's tied to something else, like a long note, it's a da, right? So this is do, dit, da. Okay. So if we're steady tempo, da, do, dit, da. Okay. Everyone say that with me. Make sure you're on mute. 1, 2, ready, go. Da, do, dit, da. Say it again. 2, ready, go. Da, do, dit, da. Feels good. Looks funny. And Myrna, your point about, I don't understand why they would write it like that. Makes no sense. You're absolutely right. But we have to remember this notation was not born out of the European classical music that we're used to reading. This was just it was using symbols to try to communicate what they were already feeling and playing. It was definitely something that emerged orally, sound-wise, and then they tried to put symbols to it. Somehow, and I don't know exactly how it happened that we came to use this notation specifically for those sounds, but we did. And so if you're reading something that says swing at the top, when you see this rhythm, that's what you'll play, is do, dit, da.
So really the dit, I think Lenny was trying to say this before, this dit right up here at the first line, first measure, it's more like an eighth note and an eighth rest.
Yeah.
Dit, da.
Yep. Yep, it's a lot more like that, exactly. Yeah. So if we go through this here, these lines here, this is a little bit weird, and there's a lot of dits here. And I'm going to tell you why here, and that is, here's a rule. Eighth notes that are written as tied to other eighth notes are usually played as dits. Okay? So usually quarter notes are dits, usually eighth notes tied to eighth notes are dits. Now, but wait, I know this song where the quarter notes are long. Well, yeah, that's very common also. But usually the quarter notes would be separated. So we'll call them dits while we scat. Okay? Now, again, when you're singing words, you're going to have a lot of long quarter notes. When you're playing the instrumental parts, to have very tight background rhythms together, we'll typically put space in between those quarter notes. Usually. Unless they mark long marks over that. So here, do, dit, 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 da. So here's our steady beat. Do, dit, 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 da. Let's try it together. Ready? And we'll start on 3. 1, 2. Do, dit, 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 da. Make sense?
It seems like your statement about whether it comes before the beat or after the beat works really well here.
Yeah. Yep. And in something like this, I would probably go through and mark those hash marks, you know, at least when it, you know, do, dit, 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 da, right in between those, so I can keep track. Now, you know, unless you get used to just feeling that. You know, if I had a student who was...
Put hash marks in the second line here. I'm just wrapping my head around this.
Yep.
If you put hash marks in the second line,
Mm-hmm.
you would have a hash mark on 1 and 3?
I would probably put a hash mark starting on 3. So 3 and then 4, I'd put a mark right here. And then right here, you know, right in between where the downbeats actually are. So
you'd put a hash mark at every, because 4/4, and like Janice was saying before, you'd put a hash mark in all 4 beats of 4.
Yeah, that's probably what I would do if I was marking hash marks. Now, with some students, if they were really struggling because they're just so caught up in trying to count it out and everything, I would probably have them go, do, dit, 1, 2, 3, 4, da. So that they literally stop trying to feel where it goes in between a beat because they're trying too hard. Do, dit, 1, 2, 3, 4, da. Now they're forced to just feel it instead of trying to break it down and analyze it. So that, you know, we just start hyper analyzing things and we confuse ourselves. The jazz and the swing are meant to be felt and heard, right? Again, like Myrna said, the notation is super confusing, and you're absolutely right. So we can't get hung up in the notation too much. We just have to know that when we see this, this is what we play. It's not what you would think you play, but it's what we play. Okay? All right, so let's scat these lines together here, okay? All right, make sure you're on mute. All right, let's see. 1, 2, ready, go. Da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, 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 da. 1, 2, da. And these ones right here that come right after a beat, just like Janice said, It comes right after a beat. That's the important thing. It's 1, 2, da. And how do I know exactly where to feel that offbeat? You just have to listen to lots of jazz and learn where that feels right. If all you do is listen to Susan marches and then you try to feel where that goes, you're not going to feel it, right? But if you listen to jazz, then ba, da will feel more comfortable to you, okay? So now that I sang it, you could potentially sing that with me the same way I just did, right? Did you do okay with the do-dit-da before? Okay, let's do do-dit-da. You're going to scat with me, and you're going to sing the pitches this time. And try to get that ba, da. Try to feel that there. Ready? 1, 2, ready, and da, do-dit-da. Da, da, do-dit-da. Da, da, do-dit-dit-dit-dit-dit-da. 1, 2, da. Got it?
I think the thing for me that's a little the trickiest thing is that last note on the first line, because it seems like you're anticipating it just ever so slightly, but then there's a tendency to rush into the downbeat of the next measure. At least I have
into
that.
This right here.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed I was rushing into that.
Yeah. So I notice sometimes that when we come in after a rest, depending on the tempo that we're at, a lot of people think I really need to lay back on this entrance, but you really don't. It's not, it's a lot closer to straight eighth notes than most people realize when you're coming in after that rest. If you're at a real slow tempo and there's a real triplety subdivision, it would be a lot more laid back. But at this moderate tempo that we're doing, it's ba, da. 1, 2, ba, da. We don't really, if you wait too long, you're going to be late on that note. So if you come in on an entrance after a rest, you typically don't lay back much. It's more of an anticipation.
So, Shawn,
Yeah.
the last bar of the first line. So there's a whole note here. That's 2.
Yeah.
And then this rest is 3. This is 3.5. And there should be, this is my question. There should be something here where the 4th beat should be.
Yeah, 4 is happening during this long note here. Like you said, this comes in halfway between 3 and 4.
Right. Because if you play this as 4, then you bust the beat. I mean, you bust the rhythm.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1.
Yeah, and there's just nothing here, and you're supposed to know that.
Yeah, and the way that you could figure that out is the dotted quarter means it's 1 plus half, right? That's 1.5 beats. So the half is coming in on the and of 3, and that quarter is beat 4, but it's all part of this note here.
Okay.
So like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1.
Okay.
That all exists here.
I know intuitively how that bar is counted. But now in terms of, making sure I know how it's notated, that's where the question comes from.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I used to do a thing for my my students that I used to have them color, and I used to call it blocks of sound. And I would have that like squares, and I would draw rhythms above these rectangles, not squares, rectangles, and they would have to color in where each note was, in those blocks of sound. And that kind of reminds me of that, because if you see it as blocks, it makes a lot more sense. You got the 2 colored in, you have half a beat empty, and then it comes in on the and of 3, and it continues for a beat and a half. Then this note ends where beat 1 starts, Visually, that makes a lot more sense, I think, than even this notation. So Okay. So those are our general rules. Again, they're broken very frequently, but these are good starting point rules. Do, dit, dit, and then 2 notes together, 2 eighth notes, they're flagged together. It's do, dit. Okay? Now when we have quarter notes on downbeats, that's usually a dot. D-A-H-T. And you'll see that here in a second. So we just went through this. You listened to me do it. You sang it with me. And now when you play it, you're going to try to match the articulations and the feel that you sang it with. Okay? So we're gonna listen and sing it. So the first time I'm gonna sing it, and then we're gonna sing it together with the scat syllables, the whole melody here, okay? This is after the big rubato intro. This is when the time starts, okay? Make it so we can see this whole thing. Ready, here we go. You're gonna sing it with me. 1, 2, 3. Da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, 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 da. 1, 2. Da, dia, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, 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 da. 1. Ba-da, da, da, dit, da, 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 do, dit, da. Ba-da, da, 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 do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, da. Da, 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 dit, 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 da. How'd you do? You okay?
Fine, but all this time we've been playing this, you haven't told me that I haven't been hitting the rhythm right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's keep this in mind. This is just a lead sheet of the rhythm, of the melody. It's just one version. We're playing, the version that we play in Klezmer Band is a specific arrangement. It may not have these exact rhythms in it, okay? So these are just the rhythms that are on the lead sheet that I play it off of when I play this with the harp player.
Go ahead.
One of the places where I fall down,
Mhm.
and it's in Klezmer Band and it's in Marion Jazz Band too.
Mhm.
Is there's a lot of time in jazz music and in this kind of swing music where I'm keeping time
Mhm.
in a fill, which is okay, but to really have the ensemble sound together, for instance, at measure 1 before 8.
Like right here?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I have not been playing that the way it's written, and I might be sounding okay if I was on my own, but I don't sound together with the rest of the instruments. So there are starts, usually starts and sometimes stops, where I should be rhythmically right on the beat with the major instruments for us to sound together.
Right. Yeah, so this rhythm here, Ken, what beat is this note on?
That's 3 and that's 4.
Yeah, this is 3. So I'm going to take Janice's advice, and I'm going to look at this note as just being right before beat 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now if we're all feeling the swing rhythm, we get the feel of the piece, then if I go 1, but 3, 4, all I need to worry about is this comes right before 3, and I need to feel where 3 is. I need to feel where 4 is, those big beats. So it's 1, 2, but 3, 4.
So ba makes it's sort of a less important syllable.
Well, I think ba gives it a little bit of accent more than do would.
Oh.
Ba-do, ba-da. Like if you're talking and you're saying something and I think you're wrong, I'm gonna be like, but what, and it starts with a B and it's a but, right? I'm interrupting you. I want somebody to listen to me because I think what I'm saying is more important than what you're saying. If I say, but wait.
I would like to see the notation all the way through the syllables. Could you do that for us?
Yeah, I could do that. I basically just didn't write a lot of those in because I had already written them here, but we can just copy and paste that.
Yeah. I think,
Because
Shawn, the interesting thing is that when we were singing that together, I know we were on mute, but that was that measure before 8 is where I got the rhythm wrong, and I didn't make the ba a little bit longer and the dot to the quarter note I did make short, and the 8th note I didn't make long, and that tricked me up right there. So it was interesting that Ken also mentioned that he had a issue with that measure as well.
Well, this 8th note should not be long, because remember, if we have 2 8th notes, right, which we don't here, but remember the first 8th note is part of this rest, right? If we had an 8th note right here, it would be do-dit, right?
Okay, so it's not really that. It's not really that long. It's just,
the first 8th note would be the long one, but this is just a pickup into 3. So it literally
but the
just
3 and
comes
the
right
4
before.
are short. Yeah, okay.
Dot. They're separated. They're not like dit, but they're
Right.
dot. So anytime we have quarter notes on the downbeat, it's dot. Okay, now if we had 2 long marks over these, it would be 1, ba da da da. But we don't have the
It
long
wouldn't be
marks.
very swingy, yeah.
Yeah. Now, again, it depends. Maybe as a band, we decide we want to play the quarter notes long. We think it feels better in this tune. We can do that. We don't want it to be so bitey and in your face. We just kind of want it to be more chill. Okay, then we can go ba da 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 dee do dit da, but we would still go do dit da here.
Yeah.
Because this quarter note is not on a downbeat.
For me, though, that's important because that would change what I play. So if we leave those as quarters, I would be playing on my snare drum 3/4. If there were lines over those 2 notes, I might take my right hand and make those 2 strokes on a cymbal.
Yeah.
To give it some
resonance.
Sustain.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so those are the kinds of conversations as a band that you would want to have. Do we want to play the quarter notes long or short? And maybe we decide based on our preference. Maybe we decide based on a recording that we like. Well, on this recording, they're all playing the quarter notes separated. So that's what we want to do.
Why do you have that one accent marked on measure 9?
That's a great question. So the accent right here is because it's on an offbeat, okay? Now, I could have put an accent here and here, but for me, this felt like a very appropriate place to put it because all of the rest of these notes here come on downbeats. Starting here, da, 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 da. It kind of jumps out at you in the middle of a bunch of notes that are on downbeats. So that's why I would put the accent there. It makes a big difference. When they're all on the offbeats, if you accent all of them, what's the difference? An accent's supposed to stand out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I put that accent there, and I would put it here too. I just tried to write in the syllables where we had something new, some kind of new rhythm that we hadn't done yet. So let's try it singing along with me this time, okay? And then I'm gonna play it, and I want you to, after we sing it together, I'm gonna play it, and you can do the scat syllables with me, or if you're a concert key instrument, you can play it with me, okay? If you have your instrument. So make sure you're on mute, and we're going to scat sing this together, all right? All right. 1, 2, 3. Da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, 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 da. 1, 2. Da, da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, da. Da, da, do, dit, 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 da. 1. Ba da 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 do dit di. Ba da 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 do dit da. 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 Did you do okay?
Yeah, better than last time. Yes, thank you.
Good. All right, so now I'm going to play it, and you're going to sing it with me. If you have a concert key instrument with you and you want to play it along with me, you can. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. How'd you do? Did your scatting line up with the notes I was playing? Ish? Anybody have any feedback, comments?
I was practicing transposing on horn
Oh,
with mixed success.
okay.
I was trying the piano part and forgot what you had taught us about the fact that a capital letter with a minus means a minor chord. It's sort of like the new music, like the new math, you know?
Yeah.
That's not the way I learned it.
Yeah, and you know, there's lots of different, those turnarounds, you know, in other words, the last couple measures of a section can have all different chords, so. Okay. I just adjusted my audio settings, so now when I play, it shouldn't cut out so much. Sorry about that. Does anybody want to try that again, or are you good on that? You good on that? Give me a thumbs up if you're good on that, ready to move on. Thumbs down if you want to do it again. Okay, all right. Let's go on then. It looks like most of you are ready to go on. So does anybody have any questions about any of that stuff? Great, let's move. So now, all I have for how to sight read better is just my things that work for me, okay? My advice. Hopefully it works for you. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. I tried. The most important thing about sight reading is you have to keep a steady beat. I just listened to lots of juries today, and lots of people sight reading just worried more about, you know, I don't know, notes or something. They keep stopping. And so you got to keep a steady beat. That is the trick. Number one, most important thing. When you sight read, use a metronome. That'll help you. It's your lie detector. Next thing is that big picture, looking at the big picture and visually identifying where your downbeats are. Even if you don't mark a hash mark above each downbeat, still, when you look at it and you get your 30 seconds before you start playing it, look for those big beats. Just skim it. Just look big picture, big beats. Don't try to look note, 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 okay? When I used to do, like in auditions, when they would give us sight reading material, they would literally give you 30 seconds to sight read a page for them, and you had to play it as if you had already, you know, rehearsed it many times. I would do this thing where I would just visually scan the whole page not trying to figure anything out, just letting it all go inside my brain, okay? And somehow that would help me to actually know how the things went, okay? Rather than consciously thinking about how everything went, I let it just go back to my subconscious, and I let the back of my brain kind of figure it out without me consciously thinking about it. Then when you get to the rhythms, it's like you've already seen them. It's more like you've already practiced it, even though you haven't went through and figured out every single rhythm, okay? I know this sounds ridiculous, but just trust me. Try it. I promise. So just like we did with the 6/8, you're looking at the big picture. Next thing is, the most important thing is playing correct rhythms. Correct notes are secondary. So you can play all the right notes in the world, but if you don't put them in the right spots, they're not right notes anymore because you're not with the band. That make sense?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So the next thing is to try to think in your key signature, okay? Rather than thinking, oh, I have a C sharp and an F sharp, and I need to remember I have a C. Don't think that. Just think D major. Just put your brain in D major mode. Sometimes it helps to play through that major scale first before you start playing. Because then, as you're sight reading, if you see a pattern, you see a shape that goes up and down, and you know it starts on A and it goes up to a G, or, you know, when you start going up in your fingers, your brain's thinking in D major, you're probably going to hit that C sharp and that F sharp because you're thinking in D major without consciously trying to play C sharp and F sharp. You're just thinking in D major and playing the shapes, okay? Focus on putting the correct notes on the downbeats. Don't worry so much about all the notes everywhere. Just try to put those correct notes on the downbeats. When you think in your key signature and you put the right notes on the downbeats, you'll be surprised at how many correct notes you'll play in between the downbeats. Okay? I'm seeing this theme. Are you seeing this theme where we're thinking about the big downbeats every time we're and everything that falls in between it, we're kind of just letting it fall in between it and aiming for those big beats as we go through. My last advice to you, and I know this is the one that Eddie was really tuning in for, and that is sight read as often as possible, because it really is true that the more you do it, the better you get at it. Now, I would advise you, if you happen, I don't know if you guys are happen to be home for any extended period of time lately, but
Yes.
if you happen to have some free time on your hands at home, order a new etude book online, okay? And force yourself to sight read one etude each day slowly with a metronome. And try using these tricks. Try looking for those big beats. And then the last thing, this sounds funny, but pretend like you know what you're doing. Seriously, play with a confident sound, play with good posture, keep going, don't stop and restart, and you just might surprise yourself. I realized when I was in high school band and we were sight reading, so many people would just like start playing really quiet and kind of drop out. And it's not like they didn't know how it went. They just were afraid to step up and like be a leader or something, you know? Most of them could play the music. They just didn't act like they could.
A lot of musicians are very intimidated by sight reading, even adults.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is intimidating. I mean, somebody's putting music in front of you that you've never seen before, and you're just supposed to magically know how it goes. That is intimidating. So I kind of just started doing this thing when I was in high school where I was like, I'm just going to pretend like I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to try to hit the downbeats.
Yeah, and for wind players especially, what happens is you tend to back off on the air and the air support, and then your sound just goes to hell, and then you just it just gets worse and worse, and your self-confidence gets, and you get yourself in a shame spiral.
Yeah, and your intonation gets terrible, and then you forget where you're at because you get so worried about those other things. Then you don't even know where you're at. So I found that if I played with more confidence, that more people would join me. And then they looked up to me as a leader. I don't know if I'm right or not, but if I'm the only one playing with a confident sound, you better believe everybody's going to jump to where I'm at. You know, so it actually helps other people for real. So I read this article one time about Cannonball Adderley. And I don't know if any of you know Cannonball Adderley, but he's a famous jazz musician, alto saxophone player. His brother was a trumpet player, and they used to play a lot of music together. But Cannonball was on a lot of Miles Davis albums. And he has this big, fat, beautiful alto sax sound. They were, this magazine, I think it might have been Downbeat, was interviewing him about something, and they said, man, on this one record, you just played this great big sound, and what you played was just incredible, you know? How did you do that? And he said, I had no idea what I was doing on that song. I had no idea what the chord changes were. I had no idea what I was doing. And so when I don't know what I'm doing, I just figure I just play louder. And that's what he did. He just played louder, and everybody was like, oh man, he meant to do that. That was so awesome. But then the truth comes out. He had no idea what he was doing. Just played louder. He played with a confident sound. Everybody believed him. Everybody thought he knew what he was doing. He's Cannonball. Of course he knows what he's doing. What questions do you have?
Really helpful, Shawn, tremendously, because you know, that one point you made before, I don't know which point it was, is what I was saying before. Right there, number 3. You know, that's my biggest concern, is there are places, important places in the music where I'm not with the band.
Mm-hmm.
And especially on like by Muir, for example. And it's fine to do the Cannonball Adderley thing, but it would be better to hit the right notes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, when you're going through in sight reading, when we look at something like this etude up here that we were looking at in 6/8, there's a lot of notes, there's a lot of rhythms, there's a lot of articulation markings. There's a lot of things to think about. We can't prioritize everything, you know. But we need to sort this out in our brains quickly and prioritize something. So the most important thing, prioritize the rhythms, look for those big beats. Keep a steady beat and just try to line the big beats up. And then what falls in between those beats, that's when you can start looking at, this comes right after the big beat. This comes right after the big beat.
Because many scores that we look at, there is no percussion part.
Right.
And so many times I'll ask you for whatever part really carries the rhythm most of the time, because really not carries the rhythm, carries the melody.
Mm-hmm.
Because most times the important rhythmical changes are there.
Yeah.
And when I'm marking up an instrument sheet that isn't written for percussion, that's what I'm looking for, to try and be with the band.
Right.
Well, and I know as a percussionist, it's Vicky, to not only know to support the notes the band's playing, but to set up what the band's about to play.
Yeah,
True,
exactly.
True.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I've been really interested in figuring out a way to play together remotely in real time. And I don't know I think Zoom has too much delay on it. And then my daughter said she thought something in Facebook might work. So has anybody else been thinking about that?
Yeah, I've talked to hundreds of people lately about this, because obviously as somebody who's teaching during, you know, music during all of this, obviously this is big on everybody's minds. And the best thing that we have come up with is that we play a track through Zoom, kind of like we did with the play along tracks last week, I think it was, but everybody's muted and we all play together. I think Susan kind of suggested that as well. So that would be how we would rehearse. We couldn't all hear each other, but we could all know that we were all playing together at the same time.
Oh, some of our symphony musicians did that kind of thing. I talked to David Bellman about it, and that was how they did Beethoven's Eighth. And if anybody is interested, I could send the link to the group, but it's really nice. And that was what they did.
Yeah.
They all had it was more than just a metronome. It was a track of a part of that symphony.
Yeah.
That's how they play.
Yeah, and if we want to record ourselves playing something together, we can do that. We play a track of the music. We put ourselves on mute and play along with it. But if you have a separate device set up, so let's say that we're doing Zoom through your desktop computer. If you set up your phone next to you and record yourself playing the music, and have earbuds in listening to the track, so that your phone just records your sound, not the sound of the track, we can send in our recordings together, like everyone sends it to me, and we mix the recordings together, and we could actually record ourselves playing together.
Uh-huh.
That's what we're going to do with my youth orchestra this summer. That's how we're going to do that.
It sounds like a good possibility. I made an account for myself in BandLab, but I haven't really played with it. But you put tracks in, kind of like we're talking about.
Oh, cool. I'm not very familiar with that program. Is anybody else familiar with it?
Yeah, I haven't gotten around to playing with it.
Now, I know Marty has worked with acapella. My friend Marty here is tuned in here, and he's been putting together quartets and this kind of thing with his friends that play different instruments around town, and they all record tracks over each other on using acapella.
Oh, acapella, yeah, that's another, I ran across that name.
Yeah, so that's a cool one. But it's, I don't know how many people can do acapella at once, Marty. Is there a limit on that?
He's
I think
muted.
you can do up to 9 people at a time.
9 people?
I believe so.
Okay. So, yeah. Now my at Marion, I told you we recorded the fight song, and we all sent in our videos with a metronome so that we could all stay together. But with the video track we were all watching was a conductor conducting it, and we mixed it down. It was the fight song. We used Pro Tools to mix it all down. And it worked really well, actually. Here, let me show you guys it right now, since if you have to get going right now, I totally understand. I won't be offended. But I can pull that up real quick. All right, so all right, here we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right, here it is.
K-N-I-G-H-T-S.
Very nice.
Very nice.
So yeah, there's a couple little, it didn't line up perfectly at some times, but I think that was more on the musicians than necessarily the,
No, that that really works. There was the Metropolitan Opera did a gala over the weekend by cell phone, basically, with the orchestra and singers. And the New York Times music critic, because he couldn't stop himself, reviewed it. And
of course,
but what he said, it was a lovely review actually, but what he said was the little, the imperfections in the process and just the kind of things you were talking about, made it more engaging because everyone knew what the activity was and what people were trying to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. So I would love to try to do something like that if you guys are into it. We've had some discussions with my board of directors for my youth orchestra, and we're going to do that process this summer for the youth orchestra for our rehearsals. And we have commissioned a piece of music that is specifically geared towards this medium. So it has a track that you play along with, and it has choreography and videography that is part of the performance, that if you were to perform the piece on a stage, you could, but you wouldn't get the full effect unless you're performing it on Zoom, basically. So yeah, so we've commissioned this piece, and it's going to be super cool. I'll share that with you guys this summer so you can see what we're doing with that.
Good.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
So many creative things happening.
Yeah.
We're trying to approach it as an opportunity and, make the most of it rather than looking at something that's holding us back. So like I'm trying to bring in artists from around the world to talk to the students and, do little master classes for them online when otherwise we couldn't afford to bring those people,
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk really quickly about next week, specifically klezmer band people, but anybody else who is going to tune in for next week, I would love to have you participate. So next week, I wanted to do a class that is not for us, but it's for the community. So I wanted it to be like, let's get the Derek Torah students to tune in and learn about instruments, learn about all the instruments that we play. And each one of you could put together a little spiel about your instrument, play a little something for everybody. It doesn't have to be a concerto. It could be like 2 measures, and just kind of talk about your instrument. Like, this is, I hit the drum with these things. I mean, it doesn't have to be really, anything really cerebral. It can just kind of be really basic stuff and, maybe play a
sort
song
of like a show and
guys.
tell or an instrument petting zoo at a little higher level, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And
But do you want to demonstrate anything about klezmer or just music in general?
Honestly, I thought that would be cool, and I've left it a little open-ended. So we can make it whatever we want. We have the next week to think about it. We can talk about it. We can confer.
How much time should each of us plan to talk? 5 minutes or less?
Oh, less. Yeah. So like, I mean, technically there's about 15 of us for real if everybody is there.
Yeah.
So if each of us plans for 2 minutes each, plus transitions and question and answer, that would.
Okay.
But again, you could plan, I mean, even 3 minutes would still be. I wouldn't go more than 3 minutes each. So 2 to 3 minutes each person.
Yeah.
Is that cool? But we'll have to advertise this. We have to get some of our friends and family and, get students on here. It may be something where it's just an outreach to the community at IHC, to kind of show them. Because I think a lot of people, even people have tuned in here, that aren't necessarily, part of the klezmer band, but they're interested to know, like, what is that instrument that Rick's playing? It looks like a guitar, but I don't know what it is, And I think people are genuinely curious and interested to know more about what we do and probably to know more about klezmer music.
You
Shawn,
want to put it in Kulanu, the newsletter?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, we should definitely put it in Kulanu.
do you think it would take more than a week to sort of get this on?
No, I don't think so. I think we can do it next Monday. If you guys need more time, we can probably extend it, but
No.
I think we should be able to do this in a week.
Yep.
If everybody can kind of start thinking about what you would play and say about your instrument, again, only 2 to 3 minutes max. And then we can kind of, I can send an email out and maybe we can like Zoom talk through the stuff maybe Friday or Sunday, something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Sure.
cool. Let's do it.
That sounds good.
Maybe we could even do one of those things where we play along with the track and we'll pretend like the track is us and they'll never know and it'll look really cool. All right, cool. Well, then I'll send out an email and we can collaborate on a time for that.
Yeah, I'm really, some of these things I've seen online, I'm really envious of how they put those things together. And the reason is like that guy said in the New York Times, the fact that people are getting together to do that for other people, and expending the effort and when it really comes out, it's really good. As long as it is really good, as long as it sounds like music. So it would be great to have that as a goal. I mean, that could go on the synagogue website like forever.
Yeah.
An online tune from the klezmer band. That would really be something. And I don't, what you were talking about before, like with cell phones and stuff, I don't have the first idea, how we would really do this, but boy, if we could, that'd be fantastic.
Okay. Well, start thinking about what tune you would want to play then. Because we can't do a whole concert, but we could do one tune. So start thinking about what tune you guys would want to do, and then we can find a good recording we all like and go from there.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, I ran you guys way over, like by a half hour, so I'm really sorry, but thank you all for tuning in and sticking around, and it's been a pleasure seeing you all as usual.
We enjoy it.
Yes. Thank you, Shawn.
This is great. Absolutely great.
All right. Nice seeing you, Marty.
Take care.
Nice to see you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.